do we have free will? Like are we actually in control of our choices and the things we do, or is it just that everything that like our genetics, our parents, our like environment that we grew up in, those are what determines our choices, not the actions that we actually do? And if so, then there's no point in what decision we make, because it's kind of in a way predetermined, fate like, if I must say.
I believe that. You see, it's a good one because depending on the way you look at it, because what I would first think of is that there are many cases of people who have grown up in like the inner city in very bad places and have gone out, like came out of there perfectly fine. There's also but there's more people who haven't, and I think in one way that proves that theory, and one way it disproves it. Because if you look at the way that it proves it, you could say, well, yeah, that tough situation that they went through, if they had someone around them, or even if they didn't, that shaped who they were and kind of influenced every single one of their decisions. But at the same time, you can look at that and say, well, everyone around them didn't do what they did, therefore what they did was out of their free will. It's going against the grain, if you know what I mean. You could say that, but it's a really tough one because you can prove or disprove it. I think the best way to look at that situation, the one that I just brought up, would be to say everything influences your decision but doesn't make them. So you can have everything in your life go wrong, but you can still make the right decision. And you can have everything in your life go right, and you can see that in a lot of times. Everything is perfectly fine with one person's life. Take out the fact of depression and stuff. If that happens, then obviously not everything is okay in their life. But like, say everything is right in someone's life and then something happens, that can show free will in itself too. It's just they made the wrong decision even though everything was right, going right for them. You know what I mean?
Sorta. I'm kind of a bit confused in the area of where, like, because you were describing a situation where if a person were to, if a person were to go about their life and whatnot, and like, you know, if things went well for them and then something didn't go well for them, then that person therefore had like the sort of free will to not have things go well for them. Is that what you were saying?
I said they have free will to make the decision that went bad for them. So, like, say they were like,
okay.
I think I'll try heroin today or something like that. I mean, hobbies, like, I think that's what I was thinking of. Is like everything goes right, and then they do one bad thing that ruins their life. That was their own free will that led them to do that, and I feel like their life would have influenced them otherwise. So I think that brings up the point of life can influence you, and the situations that you're in can influence you, but that doesn't make the decision for you.
Okay. I see what you're saying, but as a bit of a kind of counter argument to that, would someone really do that? Like, let's say if someone not like, you know, top 1%, but like, you know, who have basically like kids of the top 1%, you know, where they just kind of have their lives planned out for them. It's a lot easier for them because money. But let's say more of like upper middle class, that nothing has gone wrong for them. You know, they've had a great experience growing up, good education. You know, like a lot of factors counting into them being, let's just say, like a good person. And then one day, all of a sudden, they start doing drugs, smoking, you know, or committing some form of a crime. It doesn't make some sense for them to do that. You know, like, yeah, they have the choice to do that, but it does not make any sense at all for anyone like them to do that. So,
well, I mean, like peer pressure and stuff, if they start small and work their way up, I think it does make sense. But the problem,
that would count as a variable.
Well, yeah, but like you also have to look at the fact that how many other people have that same pressure to do something but don't act on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they had that same scenario, but they had their own free will and they'd made their own decision. And this other person had the same exact scenario and they had their own decision. If that factor worked the exact same in every single time, everyone would be doing drugs. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but I'm still trying to think of how I would say it's no, I don't know if I can say that's exactly possible, because them like having peer pressured into doing something, or having like some underlying subconscious like want to try something, that counts as a factor or variable in this massive equation that is someone's life. So we would have to include that, and then it becomes okay. I'm gonna propose something, and it'll help explain this a little bit better. Where I don't think that life is filled of possibility, where like there's all the choices that you can make, and yeah, you can do whatever you want. Because yeah, you can do whatever you want, but to an extent, it's more of, I would say that life is filled with probability and not possibility. Where instead of what you would do, there are things where you were most likely to do. Where it's like, for example, choosing a college. If someone were to grow up and they had, decent education, decent this, decent that, like everything's fine, but they had like more influence over one college than another, and because of their brain and how it deals with influence, it would more go for one thing than another, and so therefore that could like determine the choice of their college. And so yes, they could choose the other college other than the one that was influenced on them, like saying, hey, you should go to this college, like would be a good example, like Table University. All right, someone can influence them go to Table University, and that small little bit it kind of pushed them over the edge to be like, hey, let's go here. But it also could go the same way for them not going that way, and instead taking it as, no, I'm going to look at the facts and think of what I want to do, which would then be go to the other college. But what doesn't make any sense at all is for them to drop everything that they're doing and start doing heroin. Because it's possible. They could totally do that,
no,
but it's not probable.
You see, I feel like that's not the exact situation we were talking about. The situation I was talking about was like everything's going right in their life, and then at one point they decide to do something small that doesn't seem to matter in the time, even though they've been told say not to. Say it's like, hey, try this or whatever, you know what I mean? And they don't think it's that bad, or say they're at a club and something, someone spikes, or I don't know, something happens, okay, and they make their own decision to do that, and it happens a lot, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense, but neither do people. It just, you know what I mean? But it happens a lot.
Yeah, I would say that that's true. I can agree with that. It's like cause and effect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, let's say they'd be going about the normal day doing, I guess, what normal is, whatever it is for them, and then someone, peer pressures them into trying something, and that instantly becomes a thing that could happen to them. It becomes part of, like, this whole equation where, yeah, they could do this now. But before that, I'm speaking of, before whatever influences them or peer pressures them to do something, you would consider it, I'm assuming, highly unlikely for them to do something like that, because they could do something like that, but they wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that disproves some of it, but can also prove it, because if you think about it, like basically every scenario that I came up with was just saying when people were very likely to do something and they decided not to just to show that they made that decision themselves.
Yeah, I guess it kind of comes down to, in that scenario, who has more self-control than another person, because like you could go against what you were like taught growing up, but then a little bit of influence here could like push them over the edge to do something that they really shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that.